Hi everybody, my name is Nick Justition. I teach virtual production at Drexel University, and this video is the next in a series on working with motion capture data in Unreal Engine. In this phase, we're going to take a look at how the retargeting process works in Unreal Engine. So we're going to use a Mixamo character as our source skeleton, and we'll use a metahuman as our target. But the process being shown here is going to work with just about any source and destination character, so long as they're similar in structure. In this case, we have two biped humans. So go ahead and stop this little demo playback and let's get into it. Now, the first thing that we're going to need to do is work with setting up an IK rig and an IK target for both of our characters. Now, as it happens, metahumans have both of these already set up. So if I go into my content folder and then in my metahuman folder, I'll type in the letters IK. That's short for inverse kinematics. And what we'll see here is that we have two IK assets. There's an IK rig and an IK retargeter. If I double click on IK rig, what this does is it breaks up the structure of our character into joint chains. And there's a joint chain for every major part of the body. And in the case of metahumans, there's even joint chains for various twist joints as well as metacarpals within the palm of the hand. So the metahuman rig is fairly comprehensive. And if we want to take a look at the structure of the skeleton inside the metahuman, we can also go to this character menu inside the viewport and go to bones and show all hierarchy. So you can see there's quite a lot of bones in the metahuman body. Now that we know that this structure exists, we can create a similar structure for our source character. So the exact nature of these chain names, it can be entirely custom for you if you're taking from one character that's custom and putting it onto another. But in the case of working with standard animations in Unreal Engine, it's best to set up your custom source chains based on either metahuman chains or the standard Unreal Engine mannequin character. Now, as it happens, the mannequin character and the metahumans use the same set of joint names. So if we set up our source character to use the joint names that are here in the metahuman, it'll match also to the Unreal Engine mannequin. So that is the structure of an IK rig. And again, this is really just identifying which bones in the skeleton hierarchy correspond to the various chains that define the structure of the body. So a left arm and a right ring finger, a left leg, and so on and so forth. All right, so that's the IK rig. And then RTG is a retargeting asset, so IK Retargeter. We can double click this and take a look at what this is doing. And in this case, this is actually set up in order to retarget from and to a single metahuman. And so essentially what happens here is that there's chain mappings. There's chains for the target character and chains for the source character. So this would translate between these names and a setup where the structure of the source character is and how that maps to a structure on our destination character. Again, this will be much easier to set up if we create source chains or chains on our source character that match the names of the chains that are used in metahumans and mannequins. Okay, so let's get to work with our Mixamo character. So I'll go back to content and clear out my search in Mixamo. And Sophie is the source character that I'm using here. Now, of course, I've practiced this before, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the assets that I created in the past, and we'll start over from scratch. So this is my IK Retargeter, and I'll go ahead and delete that. And I will also search for my IK rig, which is, of course, right here. Right-click that and delete it. So now that my practice assets are gone, well, let's start over from scratch. So I'll right-click in the empty space here in the folder that my source character is in. I'll go to Animation, and then down at the bottom of that submenu, Retargeting, I can choose IK Rig. And this is how we'll define the chains inside our source character. So I'll call this IK, and then underscore CHO2, and just hit enter. And now I can double click to open up that editor. So here in the editor, everything's blank because we haven't really even defined what our source character will be. So here in the preview skeleton mesh or skeletal mesh, we'll go ahead and find our character 2. So I'll click on the drop down and choose our character 2 non-PBR, use my mouse wheel to zoom back, and there is our character. Now if I go ahead and show the joint chains for this character by going to the character menu, bones, and all hierarchy, I can see that this structure is much simpler than what we were working with the metahumans. And so we only need to define our joint chains for the existing character. So let's get started. Now the first step is to define what the retargeting root will be. And in the case of human bipeds, that's always going to be the center of the hips. So for our Mixamo character, here's the hips joint, and I can right click on that and say that this will be the set retarget root. Now that we've got our retarget root set, we can go ahead and begin working with our chains. So I'll select spine to spine 2, and that of course is the entire spine of the character. And I can either click new chain down here, I can click the plus button and choose a new retarget chain here, or I can right click, that is, and choose new retarget chain. So since I selected these in the outline, I have spine to spine 2 selected. And we haven't set a goal, we'll get to that in a little bit. And the chain name is defaulted to spine. This is actually correct if we wanted to match to metahumans, so I'm just going to go ahead and add that chain. Let's continue on with the neck. So I'll select this neck joint and the head joint. The neck, and shift the head. Okay, I'm not going to do head top because there isn't a corresponding bone with our metahuman, so we just need the neck bone and this bone that's named head, but that's the base of the head and that's the pivot point. So we'll go ahead and add the new chain, neck, head. It's going to be named head, that's correct, and we said add that chain. All right, so there is our center chains. Let's just work on the right side of our character for now. And so now we're getting into the clavicle. So in the Mixamo character, there is a shoulder bone right here. And in the metahuman and mannequin world, we call that the clavicle. So I'll just right click, set that to a new retarget chain, and we're just going to name that Right Clavicle. And make sure we spell that correctly and add the chain. So now we have our 2 arms and our 2 legs. And this is where IK goals start coming into play. By defining an IK goal for each of the hands and for each of the feet, really the ball of the foot here, we'll have the opportunity when creating retargeting so that even if the proportions of our target character aren't quite the same as our source character, the destinations of the hands and the feet can be enforced based on the original animations. So I'll go ahead and select the right hand first and right click and create a new IK goal. And this is where our IK solver is going to be selected, and we're going to stick with the default full body IK. So I'll add that as a solver, and that will also add the goal and assign that solver to the goal. So let's continue. We'll do this with the right foot. And again, we're going to choose the joint that corresponds to the ball of the foot. In case of Mixamo here, this is the right foot toe base. That's what we want to do. So I'll right click here and say a new IK goal for that. And of course, now that we've already defined which solver we're using, we don't get asked that again. And let's just finish this up for the other foot and for the other hand. So left toe base, new IK goal, and we'll take that left hand and new IK goal. All right, so now we have IK goals or inverse kinematic goals for both hands, both feet. So now we can move on to defining our chains for our arms and legs. So I'll go ahead here and start with the upper arm for the right. So we'll select right arm down to right hand, actually right arm, shift to right hand goal. So there's all the joints as well as that right hand goal. Right click, new retarget chain, and this is correct, right arm, and right hand goal is going to be our goal. So let's go ahead and add that chain using that goal. And over here, we should see right arm. It starts at right arm, goes to right hand, and includes the right hand goal. Excellent. Let's continue and just focus on the right side of the character. So I'll start with the right leg this time. And so we'll have this right leg, and we'll go all the way to the right toe base goal. So right leg, shift. This outliner is having a difficult time with our shift key here. There we go. So we've got from the upper leg all the way down to that right toe base, right click, new target chain. And again, we're going to go to add the chain with the goal. So now both our right arm and our right leg are defined, including their IK goals. And so finally, we just want to get the right hand taken care of. So I'm going to zoom in here and get really close to the right hand. And we'll want to make this as quick as possible. So I'm just going to select the first joint of each finger. So it's the thumb, and I'm holding the shift key down, and that'll be our index finger, and shift click for the, that missed, control click that. There we are. So we've got our thumb, index finger, middle finger. Let's make sure we get the ring finger and the pinky. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers are selected, and I'll just click add new chain. And we don't want to call this arm. We want to match it to the joints that we're working with. So this is right thumb. So we'll call that thumb and add that chain. There's no goal, and change this to index. Add the chain. And this is for our middle finger. 2 more to go. Ring. And finally, we should be able to define the pinky. All right, so now I have at least the first joint selected and defined for each of these chains. Now we want to get the rest of the fingers. Again, we're going to work to match what is in a mannequin or metahuman. And even though the Mixamo character has a joint at the very tip of each finger, the mannequin and the metahuman do not need those. So for our retarget chains, we're going to make sure that we only take the first 3 joints. So we'll start with the thumb. We go from thumb 1 to thumb 3. And then just continue on down. So index, index 3, middle, middle 3, ring, ring 3, and pinky, pinky 3. And that's it. Okay, so now we have the entire hand, as well as the right arm and leg, all defined, as well as the right clavicle. So this is why, this is where we can take advantage of the mirroring functionality here, and simply click here to select the right clavicle, shift click all the way down to the pinky, and these are all of our right side joint chains, right click, and mirror chain. Left clavicle, left shoulder, no goal, add that chain. Left arm to left hand goal, add with the goal. So we'll just repeat this for all of these. Here's our leg, that's correct. Our left thumb, add the chain without a goal. Left index, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky. And that should define the entire inverse kinematic retargeting rig for this character. We'll just wait a second for all of those to add in. And we have the correct goals, we have the correct names, and the correct joints. Wonderful. We'll go ahead and save this. And now we can set up our actual inverse kinematic retargeter. So I'll go ahead and close this editor and right click and go to animation, retargeting, and choose IK Retargeter. I think the naming convention has changed on this as of Unreal 5.3. RTG is for retargeter, underscore, and then I'll just do CH02, the word 2, TO, and MH for metahuman. So this is a specific retargeting rig that goes from Mixamo to metahumans. Double click on this. And again, we start out blank. So we'll select our source, and that is going to be our IK rig for the character 2. And now we can zoom back and see our character 2. And then we have our target, and that will be our metahuman. So here's our IK metahuman rig. And let's take a look. I'm just going to reposition some of these. We have the ability to change the preview position of our source and our target character. This doesn't actually reposition the characters in terms of their retargeting relationship. This is just for visual reference. So I'm just going to move this metahuman forward, and for some reason the default here is the female body, even though we're retargeting to a male character. So I'm just going to go ahead and correct that. So here's our target preview mesh, female, medium weight, normal body. So I'll go ahead and type in M underscore, I think it's medium. Yep. And rather than the body, we want to make M medium normal weight body preview. So that'll give us our preview body. Okay, great. Now the bodies look like they're in odd poses, and that's just because we haven't really set up our retargeting pose between these. Now, in the case of this Mixamo source, I'm just going to keep the T-pose as this source for the Mixamo character, and instead adjust the metahuman character for the purposes of retargeting. In a later video, I'll go back and forth a little bit more and make adjustments to both the source and the target. Here we have an option to select which of the characters that we're actually working on. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to stick with the target because our Mixamo character is in a pretty decent pose that we can work with and get our retargeting going. All right, so the Unreal Engine has gone ahead and done kind of an attempt to map the various joint chains between the two characters, but it didn't do like a perfect job, right? So it's assigning chains for metacarpals, and the Mixamo character doesn't have a source chain for the metacarpals. And so we want to, first of all, reset this mapping so that we can get this to be more accurate. So to do this very quickly, I'm just going to go to the auto map chains and start out by clearing all the mappings. And now we're starting out with no mappings whatsoever. And because we were careful to make sure that we named our source chains after the same names as are used in the metahuman, we can go to auto map again, and this time we want to map exact only. So map only the empty exact chains, and what this should do is match up our chains based on the exact names, and now we are left with the appropriate chain mappings between the Mixamo character and the metahuman. So one of the things that we can double check here is, for example, all these metacarpal chains in the metahuman, they're mapped to none. And same thing with those twist bones, mapped to none. Okay, so that was really quick. Now we can just set up our metahuman target pose so that it matches our Mixamo character. So let's get rid of this offset. So we layer these two characters together. And I think I'm also going to increase the scale of this metahuman character a bit, so that it matches, in terms of foot to shoulders, the height of our source character. So I've done this before, so I think I'm just going to be 1.03-ish, maybe a little bit more than that. There we go. So this should give us about the same height between our metahuman and our Mixamo character. Now we want to start matching the positions of the joints. So we're going to go into editing the retargeting. So we'll go to this running retarget, and if I click on that, we'll show the retarget pose, and I click on it yet again, we're going back to running. And instead, I want to edit that pose. So I'll click on the ellipsis and choose Edit Retarget Pose. And here we can see that the metahuman is in an A pose, which does not match our Mixamo character. Let's start with the legs. One of the things about the legs is, even though the hip joints are really close to one another, the ankles are actually pretty far apart. So let's get the metahuman's leg to line up with the leg of our Mixamo character. So I'll select the upper leg here first, and I'll rotate back a little bit and rotate out so that we get a better line up here between the two ankle joints. That's looking pretty good. Now let's take a look at these values. Let's round them out a bit. So I'll use 0 for the X rotation. Let's go to 2 degrees for the Y, and we'll go with 3 degrees for the Z axis. And actually, let's increase that to 4. Let's try 5. And there we go. I'm going to go with 5. So 2 degrees and 5 degrees. So we'll just match that on our right leg. So 2 degrees, 5 degrees. And so we've got that lined up. I feel like we still should go a little bit further out. Let's make sure this is... Okay, it's an optical illusion. So let's just stick with our 3 and our 5, right? Yeah, 2 and 5, sorry. Let's go with 3. Okay, 3 and 5. Now, because we've rotated, 3 degrees right there. Okay, so that's 3 degrees, that's 3 degrees, that's 5 degrees, and that's 5 degrees. Okay. With those rotations, our foot is no longer flat to the ground, so let's get our foot to line up. We basically need the opposite of these 3 and 5s. So I'll click on the foot joint, I'll do -3, tab, -5, enter. So that should flatten our foot. We'll go ahead and select the other foot, -3, tab, -5. Okay, so our legs and feet are in a good position. Let's get these arms straightened out. Now, speaking of straightening out, in the clavicles, the shoulders of the Mixamo character, even though the joints internally are angled downward, the pose is actually with raised shoulders because her arms are up in this T-pose. So to correspond with that, we're going to raise the clavicles of the metahuman, and I'm actually going to get them a little bit higher than level. And this is going to be important because if we don't do this, you'll end up seeing retargeting where the clavicle or the shoulders are looking like a really big triangle. So I do recommend, in this case where you've got a T-pose character, that you rotate the clavicles of the metahuman so they're a little above horizontal. So in this case, 13.5, let me just go for a full 15 degrees. So I'll just go ahead and set both of these to 15. And now we've raised our shoulders up. And so now we can level out and straighten our arms. So the right arm will go like this, and that's, let's try 40 degrees. And so that will select the other arm and also set that to 40 degrees. And then we'll straighten out our 2 arms. And that's -35. So we'll select this arm and -35. Okay. So now that our arms are straightened out, we should have a pretty good retarget pose for the character overall. So I can go ahead and run Retargeter, and sure enough, our metahuman holds the T-pose nicely. So that's good. Now we really got to look at the hands and fingers. Quite a few people seem to have a bit of a challenge with mapping the hands and fingers. And so this is where a really good detailed eye comes really in handy, and it's really important. So to help be able to see these hands with all these joints, I'm going to go ahead and hide the joint chains, and we'll work with our outliner to select those joints instead. So I'll go to Character and Bones, and we'll select None. So now we can see the structures. Another thing I can do is just click out here in empty space, so we have our preview options, and I'm going to deactivate the debug draw. So now we just have the models showing. Okay, let's make sure we offset these characters so we can see their hands independently. So I'm going to take the target mesh and slide it a little bit here behind so that we can see the hands side by side. And one thing I noticed is the back of this palm is level and this palm is angled forward a little bit. So let's select this right hand in the hierarchy. Scroll down and find hand R, and go back into editing our target pose. And we just want to rotate this back so that that hand is level, flat with the floor. And let's try -20 degrees based on that -18. And that looks pretty good. So we'll put the same -20 degrees onto our left hand. So scrolling up in the outliner, hand left, -20, and that'll match. Okay, let's take a look at the thumb, and you can see how this thumb is kind of curved outward a little bit rather than curled in. So let's match that. Again, this is our right thumb. So we'll go ahead and select our right thumb joints. And I want to do the same adjustments to the left thumb. So to make selecting them a bit easier, I'm just going to go into the search for the hierarchy here and type in the word thumb. And now we're looking at just the thumb joints. So I've got the right thumb joints that I can look at selected. But let's start with selecting the left thumb joints and then control click to select these right ones. And so now when I rotate this, I'm going to be rotating both sets of joints. So if I go out here, you can see that that Left hand is also being rotated. And now I think we've really pushed the base of the thumb out as far as we could or should. And that's 2.2 degrees. So I'm just going to say 2 on that. And so let's release our selection of the first joint. So Control, click on thumb 1L and thumb 1R. And now we're just taking these last 2 segments of the thumb. There we go. And so that's a little bit more like what we started with. Her thumbnail is out forward versus this one upward. So I'm just going to twist this a little bit. And then finally, just a couple adjustments here to the base here. We just want this angled down, maybe in just a little bit more. Okay, so I think we've got our thumb posed reasonably well. We can look at that a little bit more closely once we start retargeting. So let's take care of our fingers. So I'll release my search. And let's go for all the fingers on both hands. So middle finger, pinky finger, this is left. I'm just holding the Control key down and selecting ring. And there is all 4 sets of joints for all 4 sets of fingers on the left hand. And let's get the right hand as well. And last set of Control clicks here. And so we'll just rotate these up and flatten them out like our metahuman character. Maybe that's a little too high. We'll just angle them down a little. All right, so I feel like this is a reasonably good pose. And we've got both hands on both sides of our metahuman all set up. So let's go ahead and save the work that we've done, run the retargeter. Everything's still looking okay. And so this is where, again, the retargeter in Unreal Engine is pretty cool, where we can audition this against some of our existing animation assets. So I'm going to go over here to our asset browser. Let's go back to clicking an empty space here so that we can take the target mesh, slide that to the left a bit, and take our source mesh and slide that to the left. And so now we've got them side by side. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on this sit and talk on the phone. And not too bad. Look at this. So the attention that we paid to the fingers is looking pretty good. And based on the animation that we have over here, we're matching that pretty well. And we are pretty good on the other hand. Now, this thumb is looking really awkward on the left-hand side, but we can't really see what the source thumb is actually doing. And a lot of these portions of the animation, I'm going to pause here and just drag on the timeline, we actually seem to be matching the animation really closely in general. So it could be that the source animation is causing the issue, but we probably don't want to have this really awkward facing thumb. So this thumb is pulled upward a bit too much. So let's go ahead and adjust our target pose so that hopefully that can look a little bit better. So we'll go back to our edit retarget pose using the ellipsis button here and then select this. And I will go ahead to the outliner and scroll up until we find our thumb. And I'm just going to adjust the base of this thumb. So I'm going to bring it in a little bit and downward a little bit. And let's go back to running our retargeter, hit pause, and let's see if we can scrub to find that moment. And the thumb's looking a little bit better in response to those adjustments. Now it's not protruding so much. Again, we really don't know exactly what that pose was on that side, but this looks plausible even when it's visible out in the open. And let's just see when the fingers are rubbing. And so that's plausible. So there we go. This whole retargeting setup is ready to go. We can save it and close this out. And then here's where the power of the retargeter really comes into play. I'm here in the folder with all of these animations for our Mixamo character, and I can select all of them. So I'll select that sitting and talking, as well as all of these other animations from our Mixamo character. I'll right click and choose Retarget Animation Assets, Duplicate and Retarget Animation. We'll select our retargeter, which is the RTG character to MH. Let's give a prefix. So this way, all of the new files generated will start with an MH. And in fact, I'm just going to call it mhanim just for fun and put an underscore there. We can change what folder they'll be saved into. I'm going to go into MetaHumans. In fact, I'm going to create a new folder and call these demo RTGs for the demo retargeting. And that should be it. We'll just go ahead and retarget. And with that retarget complete, here we have a full new set of animations just for our MetaHuman. I'll go ahead and save all of those. And let's try the standing talking with the phone instead. So I'll go to my sequencer, and instead of using the sit and talk on the phone, I'll just go ahead and right click, go to properties, and under animation, I can choose one of the new ones. So I'll MH, and let's just type in the word phone. And now I should have talking on phone right here. This is one of my new ones because it's mhanim. So I select that. And sure enough, now our MetaHuman is standing. Let's move him out away from that chair a little bit and play back our animation. And there we go. So that's how you can set up our retargeting rig and use it to retarget animations and motion capture in Unreal Engine. I hope this helps. Until next time, have fun.